Plus Promotions.
Yeah, y'all. It's a new day, y'all. Yeah. We got some business to take care of. Lots of business. The people are dying every day, shedding tears every way. Oh my God, I feel their pain. Oh my God, who's to blame? We need another day. See the light, a new way. Stop this fight. Peace in the hood is on its way. And peace in the hood is here to stay. Cause it's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is on its way. Cause it's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is here to stay. Cause it's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is on its way. It's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is here to stay. We gotta stop this violence.
All right, y'all. Now it's now 7:30. And it's time for It's a New Day. So now we get ready to break it down tonight. We're gonna be talking about safety. And gonna go ahead and break the mic open to OG Man so he can explain all the details.
Well, I want to welcome everybody to the podcast. I haven't talked to a lot of you in a long time, so I really want to get into the topic real quickly because we got police violence on one end and we got gang violence on the other end. And before we even came up with this podcast, now we got coronavirus killing us. So it was a double-edged sword. Now it looks like a triple-edged sword. But I want to talk about, and coronavirus is part of public safety. So I want to start with Mr. Rayford. You have an experience with law enforcement. Yes. I want to ask you, why did you go into law enforcement? Was it for the money, prestige, power, or whatever?
Well, I was looking for what you would call a lifelong career. Being a young cat, going through different kinds of other previous careers, I was looking for that particular career where I felt like that I could serve best. And law enforcement was something that really always I wanted to be involved in, but I chose to do it pretty late in the game. I was actually 36 when that occurred in 1995. And so my motivation really was to serve the community. And that's really kind of what applies to my nature, is to serve and to bring to the table a professionalism that could be appreciated.
Okay. We're looking for Reverend Shaw, but he's not here yet. But I want to flip that, and I want to start off with Skip. I want to ask you, why did you get involved with gangs? Was it for the prestige, the money, power, what?
I got involved with gangs. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. But I got involved with gangs because they were in my community. I wanted to really grow up to be a little Chinese boy. I wanted to be Bruce Lee. I wanted to be his protege. I wanted to go to China one day and speak funny languages and all that. But when we went to the movie theaters, the Crips were there. So I went to go stay with my grandmother in Inglewood, and now I want to be a black boy because I want to watch Superfly, the Mac. So now I want a Cadillac and a gold chain, but I can't be black either because at the Avenue on Manchester, the Crips were there. So it seemed like everywhere I went, when I went to school, when I went to the park, the Crips were there. So I didn't want to be a gang member. I just didn't want to be a victim. I decided to fight back. I decided that I was going to be a suspect rather than a victim.
Are we back there, Bobby? I like to pose that too, to Rare Breed. Bobby, we still back?
Hello?
Are we back? I'd like to propose that same question to you, Rare Breed. Why did you get involved with gangs?
Well, at 9 years old, I moved to my community and watched. And long story short, I slept with the wolves and became a wolf, so to speak. Everything is survival, where we come from. It really wasn't a decision I really wanted to make, but you affiliate, you associate. Next thing you know, you deep off into it. You hang out a little bit, then you hang out a lot, and your culture becomes what's around you. So mid 80s, you know the gang culture was rising real high, and I was adapting to my community coming from the East Coast as a young boy, and it's what was introduced to me, and you get brainwashed, so to speak, that this is what it's supposed to be. This is your lifelong career right here. You start toting guns and smoking dope, selling dope, and pretty much that's what it was. And not that I was scared of the gangs to the point where I was tuck and tail, but you fear for your life to a certain extent, to where you got to get involved and start mixing with the culture and get in the wave so you can survive. And that's pretty much my story. I didn't have no big uncles and I looked up to, and none of that. I looked up to the big homies after a while, and that's just basically how I got involved with it. And it just gravitated to it and stayed with it. And I'm here today now with a testimony. So
I like that. Mr. Ben Owens, I'd like to ask you that same question. Why did you get involved with the gang?
Well, mine was similar to Skip's and Rare Breed, with a little twist to it. So I grew up in a home where there was domestic violence, and I was looking for a source of power. And one day I witnessed that power through the Crips, seeing that they had power, and they were able to do some things that I couldn't do as a young boy. So I joined the gang for security, for a means of revenge, because again, domestic violence was taking place in my house, and I had an agenda to make it stop. And being a Crip was going to help me do that. But also, it was attractive. A lot of people were coming home from camps and YA and things like that, and they was, they was muscular. They just looked like something that I would want to be a part of. I like football. I played Pop Warner football. That was good. But the Crips were more attractive to me at that time. I liked Skip during that era, like Bruce Lee and karate and kung fu. But I was more so drawn to the gang culture. It was something that was just developing. A lot of young people involved with it, and I just wanted in, and I decided to join the gang.
Now, Reverend Shaw, got a little late, but got the same question to you. Why did you go into law enforcement?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Was it for the money, for the prestige, for the power?
Well, the truth of the matter of how I went into law enforcement, I was a young minister and I was marching with the gathering when they killed Eula Love. And we were at a meeting, and Reverend Merriweather stated that they teach them to hate us in the academy. After the meeting was over, I asked him, how did he know that? And he said, to tell you the truth, we will not know unless somebody like you go in and tell us. At the same time, because my mother had big political pull in LA County, she was one of Supervisor Hines' field deputies, and she was over law enforcement and probation. And those fields, they were recruiting me because they needed Black deputies. And when Reverend Mayweather said we wouldn't know until somebody like you would go in,
then I decided to go in. And I wanted to know for myself, my intention was to go through the academy and then quit. But by the time I came out of the academy, my wife was pointing out we had 3 children and those benefits and that money was good. And I ended up staying until we divorced. And the moment me and my wife were deciding to divorce, I left the department because even though I didn't have a bad a time as I could, I never compromised my integrity, and it always made me a target on the department because I refused to play that game. I never beat people. Too many people from the streets knew me. I patrolled my own areas where I grew up, Carver Park, everything. All I got was mad respect from my community.
Well, that brings us to the topic, which I'm gonna ask each and every one of you. When you was going through the academy, I'm gonna get this to you and then Mr. Earl Raper. What was the orientation that they gave you? I mean, or indoctrination or orientation. And the same for the games. When you got in the game, what was the orientation, the indoctrination that they gave you? So I'll start with you, Mr. Shaw.
Well, to tell you the truth, in the academy, there was very few things that went against what should have been taught. All of the training was solid. You learned how to use your weapon. You became very proficient with it. You had to learn the law. It was actually a training that every Black person in America should have, in the fact that they should be able to be proficient with a weapon to where they're not a danger to everybody else. They should know the law to where they know what their rights are. So it was actually great training. Now, there were times when you ran into situations that was contrary to what the community would want. But that usually came out from outside sources. The training in the department, in my opinion, others may have it differently. I thought the training was pretty solid. And but it was the outside when they did pullover and approaches with people from the street or Firestone and stuff. That's where you got into some of the gray areas and stuff like that. But it really wasn't what I expected it to be. And I didn't even feel the racism that I thought I would feel in the academy among the staff. Now we had to deal with a couple of situations internally, but outside, no, it was okay.
With that, Mr. Raper, what about you? What was
like anything and any involvement that you're in, there's a program, okay? And you are being taught a program that creates discipline. You have to understand and remember this is a paramilitary outfit. And so
Right.
You should be expected to ingest and to absorb the information that they're going to be giving you. Now, you are also personally challenged because you don't want to give your soul to this. You're giving your mentality, your physical involvement, the knowledge, the information, but you don't want to give your soul to this because if you do that, then you're probably more prone to corruption than anybody else on the street. But anyway, yes, as the brother was saying, you're talking about learning the law. You're talking about learning proficiency in law in firearms. You're learning how to deal with the public. You're under a great deal of scrutiny. You're being watched every second. They are gauging you every week. You've got a test every weekend. You're studying past the time that you're spending in the academy during the day. And so you're being tested at every level to prove yourself to be proper and ready for graduation and to be proper and ready for the streets.
That's right.
switching that over to Ben On? When you get it in the game, what is the orientation?
Well, I can only speak from my experience because I know today I heard that you can join a game on the internet by getting likes or whatever. So, yeah, I know things change a lot. But I was when I was young, I just kind of like just joining. I mean, again, it was just developing, so I was just part of that development. You just ran with the people that was with with the business, that was with the foolishness or whatever, that came along with it. For the most part, it was just criminal activity because we were just young kids, trying to go to juvenile hall and trying to make a name for ourselves. So it wasn't hard. So for the most part, it was a lot of the outcasts. It was the people who didn't have money, couldn't go to different places with different people, maybe wasn't athletic, So it was easy, and there was really no protocols other than, be loyal to your neighborhood, not to anyone specific, because, you really couldn't have a best friend. You just, everybody was your best friend. The hood was your best friend. But, don't snitch. Don't be a coward. Expect to hurt somebody or maybe even kill somebody, and expect to be hurt or be killed yourself. To the point to where, as I was growing older in the gangs, I had a to-do list, and all of that stuff was on there. Everything from going to jail, going to prison, to hurting somebody, to even getting shot myself. And I kind of checked off everything off the to-do list. So it was kind of like some things that's just expected. And being in the gang, it's just some normal things that you would think that the gang has to. You don't have to, take no oath or drink no cow blood or nothing weird, nothing like that. It was just, you just went with whatever, the culture went with.
What about you, Rare Breed? What about the indoctrination? What orientation do you get?
Well, my story is different from everybody else's. I wasn't quick to do what everybody wanted me to do. I had a whole bunch of fights that they call quartered on, and you from the hood now, and I'm like, I ain't ready, so we fight until I get ready. I didn't get scared on the hood, and for me, a lot of people get jumped on one time because, in my days, people was hanging out, recruiting little kids, teenagers and young adults was beating up little kids in junior high. And, that toughened us up. Some of us got scared into that atmosphere and became cold after that, after the fact, though. You put a mask on, become a whole different person. But for me, it was, I hung around my big homies mostly when everybody had to go in the house when the street lights came on. I was out with my big homies, and I got accepted through that on a whole nother angle. But then we had the troublemakers that was around recruiting and thinking things needed to be another way. So I had that headache to deal with. And so through time, it just became who you were, and through so much trial and, being tested, and things just happened the way that they happened, and nature took its course for me. And like I said, it's that sleep with the wolves aspect, man. I'm out there every day. 14 years old, I got a car. You're not leaving me. I'm going on Crenshaw with y'all. 12, 13 years old, I could do things most homies can't do. And some my big homies living with their mamas and got strict restrictions, so they come sag with me and go to my house or something and hang out with me late nights and stuff like that. So I was always privileged being a young dude around older people, and for me that was my first foot in the door. And then it was levels of that stuff that I had to go through throughout the years. So my story's a lot different, and I guess that's why I'm a rare breed, man. It's a rare breed going in and coming out, and to this day, I don't denounce a place that I want to help, because if you turn your back on them, then they saying you can't come help us because you saying you're not from over here. So that's the way that I operate. Most people do it different, but I'm still from my community to this day. I represent my community from a different level as a grown man, though. I want to bring peace and productivity to my community. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm never gonna turn my back on them to say, to tell, oh, this thing had a essence of camaraderie before I got started, and it got mixed up somewhere down the line, and that's what I want to maintain, and I want to bring it back to that camaraderie and that brotherhood in the communities. That's just a different tribe from the next one. Don't mean you got to be enemies with them. So that's my foot in the door.
It's gonna lead me to this part right here. Now, You got the law enforcement on one hand, gang members on the other hand. Through the course of our activity, we interact. You know, we interact in prison with the guards. You know, we get a certain level of respect or level of communication. So, with that being said, I'd like to get back to Earl Raper. What was your attitude toward? You mentioned something earlier about law enforcement. What was your attitude toward the community? Was it ever taught any kind of what was the impact, you know, that we were supposed to be making on the community? You know, I'm gonna ask you, you know what I mean? Did accountability ever come up in the training, you know, in the police academy?
Yeah, that basically was drilled into us. That expectation, how we were expected and to operate, to act, to behave, to conduct ourselves. We were reminded that we were servants of the community. Okay. And so with all of that and more, that was helping to shape our minds toward what we could expect when we get out on that street. Because keep in mind, you got that probationary period on your head too. So you got that whole year of probation. So you're under the gun constantly. So you're being watched at every second by any and all. So you know you had to walk a thin line. By the time that year was up, you've got it so deeply embedded into you, it becomes a working part of you. Now, I know you compete with the negative forces that seek to uproot or discount that. But that's a human thing. That's something you got to learn to work with and keep that balance.
Skip, in that orientation, dealing with gangs, is ever a time accountability to the community ever comes up?
Every day, accountability comes up, being a part of a community, part of a neighborhood. But a little different than Taco and Rare Breed, I started getting groomed for streets by my mother. My mother's the one who told me if somebody hit me, hit them back. If they're bigger than me, pick up something and knock the dog out of them. My mother also used to complain every time I would tell her my brother hit me or my brother, he's bigger than me, he bust my head open and stuff like that. She would always tell me to stop tattletelling. Don't nobody like a snitch. Don't nobody like a tattletale. So I don't know if she knew what she was doing, but she probably got me ready more because I couldn't run home if I was fighting. I had to stay and fight. Matter of fact, she locked the door and tell me go fight something. So it's accountability in the community, and where I got it from was at home. So the accountability in the community is when we go to school, and see, that's something that happens now. A lot of these youngsters don't go to school. We went to school knowing we were going to have to fight at school. We went to school knowing we was going to have to fight to get home. So it's accountability where, you know, I can't run. I can't be one of the ones who run because there's accountability when you get back to the park. So, or get back to the neighborhood. So it's the same thing going to jail. You know, being a blood is a lot different than being a Crip. Anybody wear blue, just say cuz you fit in some kind of way. But being a blood, man, we knew that we were always a target. You know, LA County Jail, 9,500 back in the days. Basically anywhere on the 9,000 floor. But we knew we were targets, and we knew prison. Bus might hold like 60 people on the bus, and it might be 3 bloods on there. And 2 of them might not say that they bloods. So it's accountability, man. It was accountability all the way through, no matter what was going on. The neighborhood requires accountability, at least it did.
What we dealing now, with the brothers, we still getting shot down in the streets, you know, again, on the police side, with the gang side, and I'm opposed this to Reverend Shaw. That was talking about it ain't but a few bad apples. My question is, if it's only a few bad apples, why can't the majority of the police get on top of it? Oh.
Get your mute, Reverend Shaw. Get your mute.
Okay. You know that you answered that in your own question.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, I would say, me personally, 80% of every cop that I ever met would run into a burning building to save the life of a child or a person of any color. But you got about 20% of them that can be bad apples. You got probably a 3% hardcore that are criminal themselves. You usually don't see them unless they on TV being arrested or locked down from running some drug ring or something. But the majority of the cops are good. But there's a good group of bad cops or borderline cops or cops who look the other way. Cops don't give a damn what happened. And those people are out there. So we can say, the president can say 2%, 3%, he lying. But the majority of cops are good.
Okay. I'm the big to differ with that. But we're gonna turn the bit on. Is it a few bad apples in the game, or is the majority the bad apples?
Well, I think in hindsight now, being honest with myself, I think there's a lot of bad apples because our intent was to bring havoc to our community, to our very own people. So I have to own that. So, yeah, mostly bad apples because we didn't bring anything good to the table. Maybe the intent was to join the game for protection for our communities, for our families, but that went in a different direction. So, yes, there are bad apples that kind of distort the whole culture of the gangbanging. And then there's a culture within a culture. So certain gang sects or tribes have their own policies and rules that people should adhere to and abide by. And there's some that's in there. So we're dealing in this age and time that you might be more likely to get killed by somebody in your very own gang than a rival gang. So, yeah, there's a lot of bad apples. It's just a whole bad concept when you look at it. But this is something that some kids created, and it just kind of grew out of control. I don't think the first gang member ever thought that, the Crips and Bloods would be around 50 years later. It's just, something that you would never think of. And all of the lives and the prison time and everything that went along with it, I don't think nobody ever seen this coming. And it's worldwide. It's like a pandemic. You can go anywhere and find a gang member, especially like a Crip or Blood. There's no place on this planet where you can't escape it. And if they don't have them there physically, they'll be there by means of social media. And, so it's everywhere. But yeah, the bottom line is there's a lot of bad apples in the gang culture.
Now, with that being said, we're going back to public safety. The issue now, and Reverend Charlie mentioned that about defunding the police and diverting resources to community groups. Do you think with the gang individuals that resources like that, maybe to hire people and get people involved in their own public safety, that it could be worked? What do you think about that, Rare Breed?
Broke up a little bit on the last part.
They talking about defunding the police and directing resources, and I've looked at some paperwork, and gang interventionists is one of the people they got on the list to channel more money into that area. Do you think that being able to put people on the payroll, more people from the neighborhood, some of the youngsters on the payroll, that could help?
I think it's worth a try. Everything we've been doing is been okay. It's cool. Do we need to step it up and impact way more deeper than we have? Yeah. What you talking about be that impact we need? Possibly. Skip helped me facilitate a meeting with the chief, and we had a few of them at the table. They wanted to talk to the young adults, 20, 30-year-olds. And one of the main topics we tried to push was allowing us to police our own. They want us to do the work, but they don't want to pay us for the work. we've been de-escalating so many gang wars out here for years before I even started doing gang intervention. And it's no compensation for that. Nobody's getting a pension for it. Nobody's getting a retirement plan. And we putting our life on the line to do the police job, who they get a check for. So I definitely think it's worth a try to go that route and see if it can increase. Because we believe jobs create peace too. So if jobs create peace and we give a job to help actually create the peace, then I believe something is going to come out of that that's going to be impactful for the community.
I see, Docker, you raise your hand?
Yeah. I just want to, if I could, just chime in on that too, because it is a lot of chatter that defund the police. I've heard some people even say just dismantle the whole police department altogether. I would have to say though, when we look at that, for those of us who are already working, whether it's creating peace or trying to, stop things from happening in our community, that make our job a lot more harder. I do think, that we do need more peacemakers, ambassadors. We need to police our own communities because a lot of times when people are asking for stuff for us, they don't really see, what that looks like. So defunding the police and give who the money and what they're going to do with it and how they're going to spend it and all that. That's important because there's a lot of people that have seized the opportunity because of what happened during the protest to, they have their own agendas. So if we were to defund the police, we got a lot of work to do because so far this year, 322 people have been killed in LA County. 322 people have been murdered. Most of them were killed by people that look like them. Out of the 322 people killed in LA County, 106 of them are black. That's almost like, what's a third of the people that have been killed so far this year. And this is just still July. We haven't even finished the year out. And out of the 106 people that been killed that was black so far this year, 92 of them are black men that probably have been killed by somebody that looked like them. So we do have a problem with the police killing us because we had 92 black men killed so far this year, 12 black women killed. And out of the whole 106 that have been killed, every life of those 106 black people matters. 2 people were killed by the police. So we really want to take a look at every life. It matters in our community, but where are we putting our resources and where are we putting our focus at? Because did these 92 people have to die? Could we have done something? Not the police. What could we have done to prevent that from happening? And now the tragedy of this is that we're on schedule. We're on schedule to have at least another 130 black people killed this year. Before New Year's Day comes, before January the 1st, 2021, I hope I'm a false prophet, but it's being forecast just on the pattern of where things are going that at least another 120, 30 people are going to die that are black in LA County. Maybe somebody we know, maybe somebody that live on our block, maybe somebody live down the hallway from us. I hope it ain't nobody on this call. I hope it's not nobody that I know, period. But we have to figure out a way to not be distracted. Because if we're distracted on who gets the money and how much, who gets the funding and all that, meanwhile, all these other people getting killed, babies, everybody. I mean, everybody just still getting killed. And our focus and our attention is on something that, yeah, it needs to be dealt with. But in the meantime, when we get, 106, well, it's 104 to 2, that's a scorecard. 104 to 2.
With that being said, a lot of times, law enforcement, they tell us, they say, well, listen, we need your help to solve crime in the community. The question is, if the police need our help, to solve the crime, why we need them? So with that, and I see Earl Raper's hand up, I'm bringing you on in.
Well, to be honest with you, I've heard a lot of really good comments, and I have to admit my brain is spinning in a way that if I could, Brother OG, go back to the previous question, but very briefly respond to that. We have to understand in order to understand what's happening today, we always have to go back to the history. We have to understand the history of the beginnings of police. Policing, you've probably heard and know that it started because of the slave patrols. It evolved ultimately into what we have today. We also have to understand that the structure of policing was not with us involved. Like any other institution in this country, we've had to knock the doors down in order to gain access. And when we gained access, we, for the most part, brought ourselves in and we projected an image and a role model, which was expected of us. When it comes down to putting that gun to somebody's head, only because you're preserving someone else's life or your own, it's rare that you see us involved in that, because we understand from a cultural perspective how some of this really works and the dynamics in our own communities. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I grew up in the hood. I also was subject to gangs. I call myself being involved. And so all of that experience was the culmination that helped me to understand that life is about decisions. It's about the choices that you make. Some have access to better decisions than others. That doesn't make anybody better or less than anyone else. It's just that for me, I chose a different route. But when I chose that route, I chose to serve in such a way that, hey, I'm not going to be a part of that problem. I'm going to be a part of the remedy. Now, having that understanding in the Department of Police, sometimes you can get that kickback. Why? Because you're dealing with a political environment where there are those who work there, you identify them as being, you don't understand us. You don't understand where we came from. You don't understand Black people because you didn't grow up around them. So what you're dealing with is systemic types of issues that are having to be dealt with still to this day. And it's still not being dealt with. It's being raised, but it's still not being dealt with to the point of remedy. Now, defunding, to some levels, I can kind of understand the issue of defunding. In the department here in Lexington, Kentucky, where I live, okay, we literally were authorized to respond to dog barking calls. Think about that for a second. What are we doing responding to dog barking calls, when in fact the public would rather us respond to burglaries in progress, homicides just committed, drug issues, and other things? So having to defund the police, we should be looking at those kinds of things so we can reallocate our funds to those who can handle those kinds of things without us having to touch it. Let's spend our time dealing with more important things. Listen, we need to understand another thing. We are in the process of an involvement and a historical change. There's stuff coming that folk they're going to get caught blindsided in a way that is going to be alarming, and it's going to bring a lot of suffering. What they're doing right now is imposing fear into the face of the community and utilizing the police as a part of doing that. When we have this issue of defunding the police, you are adding fear and the concern for the protection of the community. It's rising and it's increasing. What we're seeing also with all of the protesting that have gone on is a knee-jerk reaction to a long-standing pattern of mistreatment, double standards that have been perpetrated by police. But this is done, there's a culture that exists within policing, not in just Lexington, Kentucky, not in just LA, we know all around the country because we see the protests that's happening as a result of that. So is this a time for change? Yes, we hope that there'll be legitimate change, but there's a whole lot more that's going on behind the scenes that is being perpetrated by the power elite that somehow also is being cosmetically hidden, and that when it comes out, you'll see what was really behind it.
So, yeah, but your hand was up. Was Skip up, hand up?
All right, so my hand wasn't up, but I did want to say something, especially based on what I just heard, because as both Black men that I see on this podcast that were involved in law enforcement, I truly believe that it's systemic. Racism is systemic, but so is the culture of the police department. So by both individuals getting involved in law enforcement, if we could say that, okay, out of 10,000 sworn LA County deputies, 10,000 sworn LAPD or whatever Lexington has or St. Louis has, having two good officers does not change the system in there. So the system is what's ruined. The system is what's horrible. So, as Rare Breed talked about, having the police chief sit down, have a conversation with us. Well, this police chief in LA is transparent. However, as transparent as he is, and as he's willing to sit with the community, they still don't want to lose their 110 or 150 million dollars that city council is taking from them. So that shows me that even though I believe there are good officers, there's a system in there that wants them to protect the culture that they have and protect them from ever running out of money. And that means that they truly cannot care about the community. How can a police chief make $500,000, a police captain make 200 and something $1,000 a year, and you got sergeants and other police officers making well over 100,000, but they are servicing a community that luckily might have 40,000 a year or 50,000 a year. There's a disparity right there. The scale is unbalanced, and I think that even if they're Black or if they're white, it doesn't matter. They are part of a system that truly does not understand. So I'm in with this. So you got me, Taco, and Rare Breed on this call, and we can work with as many young people as possible. We can change their mindset, their behavior, their attitude about life. We can totally change that. But when we put them back in the same environment that doesn't support the change, when we put them back around society or police officers that don't support the change, what we're doing is taking a bath and putting on the same dirty clothes. So we can wash these young kids down.
With that said, Skip,
say it one more
with
time.
that said, have you when you meet with the police chief, did y'all present him with any type of written proposal with a budget?
No, because the police cannot give us any of their budget. The police budget comes from LA City Council. So we would have to present that to the LA City Council members, which we will have the opportunity to, and we've done it a couple of times. But the police chief, that's having a sit down with the community. That's symbolism. It's no substance. So there's a symbol that he comes out and is able to take pictures with people in the community, but there's absolutely no changes in policy that he can do by talking to us. So as he comes out, he's showing he's transparent and he's willing to take the abuse that people wanted to give him. And absolutely nothing can change by him sitting at a table in a church with us. So we have symbolism with no substance. It's like a wedding ring. I'm liable to take it off and cheat. So, that's the same thing with a police chief coming to a community. It's a symbol of something that he wants to care.
OG?
Yes.
And let me explain something. A lot of times we're dealing with the wrong targets and we get fooled by the politicians. For example, we can attack the police chief, but who is the police chief's boss? Well, it's the mayor. So why are we, and I'm not talking about currently, a lot of people seem to be able to work with Michael Moore, and I'm not against him either, but why are we always attacking the police chief instead of his boss, who could fire him or get him out of there anytime? We singing songs with our mayor and Kumbaya, and I'm not against him either. But I'm just saying, but we're not addressing, we'll attack the police chief and then hold hands with the mayor as if the mayor has nothing to do with that when he's the police chief's boss. So we have to make sure that we know the system to where we can attack the right person and make sure that that change comes from that. Then I want to say something on the other end. There are two types of policemen, Black policemen. There's the Black policeman a lot of times who grew up in the community, who wants justice for his people, who who want to give, like myself, black people the same service white people gave white people. There are those who grew up in the outskirts or grew up being bullied who get the power of law enforcement, and then they come to bully like the bullies were that bullied them. So when you're looking at human beings, a lot of times they're reacting sometimes out of love for the community. Then you got those that are mad at the community because he never got the girl. He was always beat up. He was picked on. He couldn't get along. So now I got power and I can put that on other people. So people are being people. But I agree that the majority of black officers do not, and from not just for me working the street, and I didn't work industry or marina. I worked in Linwood and Compton and the Willowbrook area. So, but the majority of the black officers weren't a part of the foolishness and stood up. But there were always those who knuckled under the pressure because they wanted to be promoted. They wanted to be able to go to the next step. They wanted the favor of the people. You've seen this in every industry. And so that they yield to that pressure, and they don't have to go through what I went through. I was called the Farrakhan of the sheriff department. I was tried to be washed out several times to where one of the white lieutenants told me, the way you fighting through this is spiritual. It's like there's two types of experience and two types of officer, and just because they're in the black in that uniform don't mean that they're the same either. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Taco, Mr. Owens, you have something to say?
Yeah. And my question was for Brother Shaw or Brother Rayford. Looking at, today, the protests, George Floyd, because some people believe that, if you're black and you become a police officer, you're a sellout or you no longer part of the community. What do you think our brothers and sisters are feeling in today's, situation? How do you think these black officers are feeling? Just coming from, your own experiences,
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you got a lot of indifference among a number of the black officers, both spoken and unspoken. Their actions is what really reveals it all. Because again, in my view, you either are going to be a part of the solution or you're going to be a part of the problem continuously. At some point in time, you got to man up and take a stand. And when I saw this whole phenomenon about George Floyd, like everybody else, a lot came out of me. I mean, this flowed, okay? Because you know why? Because that was symbolic of what folks have been talking about and feeling and suffering for years. So we had this knee-jerk reaction from the part of the public. The call for systemic change to deal with the structure of policing, challenge all of the black officers all over this country to take a look at themselves and say, are you a part of the remedy or have you continued to be silent, which makes you a part of the problem?
Exactly.
Okay. Martin Luther King covered that quite eloquently in his words concerning that. Not necessarily relating to policing, but just in general. So we are challenged on the inside because of the pressure we recognize that are coming down on our shoulders to operate a certain way. That's why I said earlier, you can train me and give me that program like any other institution or career, but you're not going to take my soul. You are not going to take my ability to independently think and understand the reality of what is. I'm not going to sell myself like that. Now, that's a part of the challenge of anybody in any profession, no matter what your race is, no matter what your background is. So my urging, and I want you all to know that I was actually a supervisor in the department. As a sergeant, it placed that edge of leadership even further on my shoulders, being keenly aware that I was one of the few African Americans in that position was being expected to display a level of leadership and philosophy that treated everybody the same. But again, you're dealing with a political institution like any other career or location, and you have to decide how you are going to handle those things that come before you. Now, if you're going to follow your conscience and you're going to do what's right, expect kickback. If you're going to sell out and in exchange, they're going to allow you to keep on moving forward, then that's up to you to deal with your conscience. And that's a part of what we're seeing today. I could have chosen and remained in other careers I was in. I was in the educational field, teaching in the classroom. I was also in the corrections field, both adult and juvenile. But I chose to go to another arm here in law enforcement. The same thing that I noticed in law enforcement is going on in corrections, going on in education, going on the street, and everywhere else. So really, but the thing they always reminded us in the academy, remember, you are being held to a higher standard. And therefore you have to respond accordingly. Did that happen? Did they honor that? Did everybody honor that? Obviously not. Why? Because even within my own department, there have been serious systemic changes, or I should say challenges, racial issues that were being slowly addressed, because you're dealing with certain kinds of chiefs who comes from a certain background. And then we began to have our first African-American chief. Challenged, I call him a man of honor and a man of high skill. Started that process of some of the issues and addressing some of the systemic issues that we're dealing with today. We now have another African-American chief, but guess what? He's challenged the same way, and in a lot of ways, he has more layers to deal with than a Caucasian chief. And boy, because of what's happened on the street, I'm seeing him tremendously struggle, because he's been held accountable and being called out because he has to answer to what's going on. Guess what? He can't see all of what's going on within his department among some of those officers. And now he's got to answer to what's been going on over there. What a heck of a challenge that he's got. But guess what? He stepped into it.
With that, what about you, Reverend Shaw? How do you think they responded to that same question Taco asked?
Well, Taco, what was that again? I was listening to his brother. He was laying it down, and every black officer from the street know what he's talking about. But I want to get the full question again.
You know, I'm saying, so there are a lot of black officers that across this country that may be feeling a certain kind of way, but we don't really get a chance to see it, because whether they're being ostracized or being called a sellout, a pig, or whatever, terminology that folks want to give them. I'm saying, how do we interact with them as our people, being that they on the same hot plate with everybody else, the white officers and everybody else? How do we, or how are officers feeling?
Well, I think one of the best ways to look at it is the way your group cease fire, interact with them at the meetings and so forth. And you find out that they're human beings. A lot of the black officers are, when they walk in, they kind of feel like they're a part of it. Friendships develop. The white officers can be respected. The ostracization that you go through as a law enforcement officer, that's to be expected. But
I think he froze up there.
I was lucky, man. See, I worked the areas that I grew up in, Willowbrook, Compton.
I think
Hey, Bobby.
Disconnected there.
Well, I think Bobby's still on.
If he's still
But I know you said we about close to wrap it up. One thing I want to bring everybody in on. We've seen these unarmed masked people that the federal government sending out. In LA, not too long ago, we seen the National Guards come in. As we research and look at every situation, every riot that ever occurred in this country, the National Guards has come out and they took away black people. What back to public safety? You've been in law enforcement, you've been in the gangs. What preparation do our community need, if any, for what's going down, what we see going down?
I think what we're seeing here, with innocence, you have people that are protesting according to the constitutional right to do so, and somehow try to balance this with these outside individuals coming here to aggravate and corrupt their efforts. Innocence in that they're looking for real substantive change. And they're going to make that sound off loudly, but we have to continue the momentum. Don't stop now. We've seen evidence in the past where we've done a little bit of talking and a little bit of protesting, and things have happened, and somehow it just kind of dwindles down and things just tend to go away. And guess what? There's no substantive change for real. And the system knows that. They understand the patterns of behavior. And so they wait it out. Now, my suggestion again is to say to those who are doing the protesting, keep it up, keep going, continue to be a part of the change. Do not let up. Keep the momentum going.
Well, my question is, we see armed, masked federal agents. I don't know what they are. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I just see what's going on in the news. I don't know if they're a federal agent or not. I mean, it wouldn't be no different. They wore a KKK mask to me. Should the black communities be alarmed at all?
Yes.
Well, let me see who we got over here. Taco, Rare Breed.
Well, for me, you definitely got infiltration. It comes from so many different scales where we've been programmed to a point where we think a certain way and not knowing we've been shifted to think that way, and we end up helping the other side, not even understanding it. You know, just like when we was in the dope game, thought we was balling out, having our money, we was gang banging, doing a genocidal thing and all that. We thought we were doing our thing, but we was doing their thing. So this is the same situation, and my perspective is, you know, it's so many levels of infiltration, man. It's, you know, it's the high intelligence, you know, all the way to the low bottom barrel where we so stupid, we so ignorant right now in our thought process, and we live in false perception of what's right and what's wrong. And when we push our rights, it's just wrong all across the board, and we just look like dummies out here. So it's a whole lot to be alert on, man. It's bigger, you know, like they say, they call it a pandemic, man. It's a systematic thing. It goes back to that chess game I always speak about. You got to have a hard chess game. Some people ain't even on the chessboard to play the game, and we don't think as many steps ahead. You know, this stuff right here been playing for years in and years out. We dealing with it today, but it was developed yesteryear. You know, and once we get out of that lazy thought process and you know what I like to call chicken and watermelon. You know, we just want to be loved and have love and be unbothered, but that's not the case. We got to be on our P's and Q's. We got to stay alert. We got to strategize. We got to get together. It's a lot of division amongst those that's trying to push peace. You know, so you'll get somebody that has a different view from your organization, and if I speak against that view, now you want to spend your energy yelling at me and calling me stupid and things like that. These are the things that we got to deprogram from, bro. It's too much division amongst us, and if we really understand the power of unity, then a lot of this stuff that we beef against will stop, and we really sit at the same tables. You know, we're not gonna always agree on the same method to the madness, but if we fighting the same cause, we got to have some kind of balance.
Yeah. Clifford, Clevo, what about you?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Change is good, but we got to decide on what we want, what we really want, because the system was designed against us from jump. Unification is great, and that's what we really need among the race. But what do we really want? What do we really want when the system has been designed against us from jump? So you got to change the whole system. And then you had dealing with people that have privilege. They've been living in privilege their whole life. They live by a certain privilege. And we really expect these people to understand us. So we go and try to do what they do to help out from inside, and yet it don't work because of their privilege. And it ain't just the police, it's the judges, it's the senators, it's all of it. And then when you get down to the root of it, if the black race, black and brown people had money, how many more issues would we really have besides maybe domestic issues? How much division would we have if we had a way to pay our own and make our own? You know, these questions I want to know. Like, if we gonna make a change in this system, what changes we gonna make? And we need to lay it out. We already know the problems. What solutions we gonna do? That's just a question I put out there.
And that's very good. Bobby, where we at?
Well, we're at the 8:30 mark, but this is a deep topic.
Well, no, because you know what we normally do, ladies and gentlemen, audience, we're gonna cut the video off, but we're gonna stay online. Everybody stay online. That way we can change information and we can have our own private conversation based on what Cleo was saying. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? Everybody's got some things they're working on. The podcast is designed to network as well as to educate. So however we're going to be able to help Skip or Taco, you know, whoever, you know, what everybody's doing. Marshawn, do you have anything you want to say before we cut this off?
Yeah, I did want to just elaborate on a few things regarding, you know, the culture and our race and everything. You know, when I was growing up, we had a sort of a good relationship with police officers because they had a DARE program. And then during this DARE program, police officers would come and they would have like baseball cards. They have like candy and things that they would pass the kids as they drove through the streets. So when we seen police cars, we was excited because we were like, you got baseball cards, you got Pokemon cards, you got grab bags, anything like that, because that was the relationship we had. And in some way, we lost that relationship. Another thing is, you know, I know we talk about a lot of like the murdering between blacks on blacks, but we got to remember the white boy had a cowboy era. And in this cowboy era, he was doing the same thing. And we also need to remember as well is that a lot of these immigrants who are here in the country, if they went back to their country, who the person that looks like them, that their same blood, they'll die too. If some of these immigrants went to their country and said woman power, equal power, if they started speaking the same thing that we speak here in America, they would get shot, they would get killed too. We're not killing each other for that. We're killing each other for economic reasons. We kind of get that and understand it, and that's something that can be done and that can be fixed within ourselves in a sense. But we can't look at it as if there's something wrong, because if that's it, we don't have nowhere to run to like immigrants can. When their government, it becomes persecution on them and starts to do things to them, they can run to America and get a free place. We don't have nowhere to run to where we can go and grab that opportunity. And so we get stuck here and we find it to take it out on ourselves. So we got to look into those things that we see, that the elements that we can divide the change within ourselves. But we got to let everybody else know, y'all can't really tell us about what we're going through or what we have, because y'all ain't been through what we've been through, because when the persecution came on y'all ran and we didn't have nowhere to run to. And you're seeing the people who don't have nowhere to run to have to face under the persecution of something where they can't run. And that's what's happening right now. And we really got to look at that as a key element. I digress.
All right, Ron Crockett, see you on the line. You got something you want to say?
All I'd like to just say is that, you know, from where we started as far as the gang issue until now, I just can say that, you know, if we can infuse some funds into the hood, that I can truly see some progress being made there. So I'm all for funding the hood.
I like that. And Skip, we also working with the mayor's office too. You know what I mean? So we can combine our resources, because we need jobs out there. You know what I mean? And we need them to do it in the name of public safety. You know what I mean? Protect your own community. And I think they can do that. There's a lot of things you can do, you know, in terms of public safety and getting people really involved. I just want to leave you, everybody, with this here. I believe in community policing, and Marshawn kind of said that. I don't believe if you want to work in Watts, you need to live in Watts. You want to work in Inglewood, you need to live in Inglewood, and that's where we need to be pressing the police at. Because I understand what you said about the chief of police and the mayor, but the unions run the police department. They run the police department. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to defunding the police got so much money. It don't just come from the mayor's office. They get mental health money. They get money from what protecting the garbage man going down the street. They get money every time the dope man case is over with, and the money go back to that private fund that every city government has. So all of those stuff about it ain't no money. It's always money. That's why the police department be fighting with the feds over them buses. It's about that money. They don't go burn up no money.
They get money for gang violence too. For gang violence.
So don't even go for that old crap about the budget is over with and we done ran out of money. Start asking the mayors about that dope money. It's legal. And the police, you go in the police station, they'll tell you what they buy. Helicopters, spy equipment. They tell you what they use the money for. So don't think the police department is out of money, or when you go defund the police, it's gonna hurt their pockets. No, it's not. It's never gonna hurt their pockets. So you need to really, we need to really start writing these proposals. Okay, let's say the police department don't fund it. Let's say the mayor don't fund it. There's too many philanthropists out there that will fund your proposals. There's too many corporations out there that will fund your proposal. But we also know you can't get no money as gang organizations or gang independents and then mess the money up. It's not like there was never no money given to gang. I was involved with Unity One. Okay, so it's not like you can't get no money, but you got to be accountable. You can't come up with no receipts, or the big homie just got out of jail, give him a job as executive director. He can't even read or write. Come on, we got to make better decisions in terms of what we do with the money. And you can get money from all kind of different places. So we need to write up proposals anyway. Like you said, whether it's going to get funded over here, it can get funded over there. Reverend Shaw with the NAACP, they right in position to get some money. But if you don't take Reverend Shaw one of the proposals he can push, you're not going to get no money.
I got, brother, OG.
Yes, sir.
Man, if I could add a little bit, piggyback with you a little bit. I think money definitely is a major piece. I would say when you're dealing with money and when it gets directed or redirected into the community among people that are doing the work, there needs to be placed in as a part of the component, them being held accountable for the outcome. Money is money, but there got to be a measurement. There has to be a way to measure the outcome and the goals that are being put forward. So yeah, I go with you there. Secondly, I also agree with you about the police unions. In this case, Fraternal Order of Police, both local, state, and federal. They are layered that way. You want to know where some of the attention should be going, and some of it has, but it needs to widen and broaden and intensify. It needs to go after eliminating the police unions, because what they serve as one part of what they serve to do, not all of them, but a great deal of what they serve to do is undercut what a police chief wants to accomplish. And secondly, what they serve to do is to undercut when there is a real legitimate investigation of an officer accused of really wrongdoing. You have that union coming in there doing things openly and behind the scenes to undercut that investigation. So essentially what you have is the officer serves no consequence, no real consequence. Right. There are things that the FOP does, but I won't get into that. I just wanted to piggyback with you briefly and say, let's focus the attention and intensify, broaden it, and extend it toward these unions, there needs to be some change. Many of these unions contract with the city. They're not even directly, in a sense, related to the police department to some levels, in that they are contracted. And so they can do things and say things and get away with it.
It's very important. Yeah, it's very important for us to really recognize that, because listen, a union is supposed to protect the employees, and they're going to tell you the police have a right to have a union, and I'm for unions, but let's look into it. Okay, they protect the police. Okay, not the community. Just like if you with Burger King or you with Walmart and you in the union's there to protect the employees. That's a good thing. But think about it. Qualified immunity. That's part of the contract. That's what makes it so hard to prosecute the police. Let's say you work in a supermarket and you coming through the line and the person working through starts slapping everybody in the line. Why not give them qualified immunity? Let's say you send your kid to school and the teacher just starts slapping every kid in the classroom. Give them qualified immunity. That's the ignorant thing in the world. So what you saying about the union, if you really want to get rid of the police department, you got to abolish the police department. You get rid of the police department, there is no more union. That's automatically. And make everybody re-enlist. You want to be a police? Re-enlist. Okay, these are going to be the conditions. Ain't going to be no union. And if you want to work in South Central, you got to live there. That's community policing. They not worried about, we want policing. No, they want those jobs. They want those jobs. That's why they send out the public relations man from the police department. His job, he's trained to talk to the people and charm you and give you all those things, how we can work together. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. We're going to play baseball and football. But they don't make no decisions. They don't impact no policies. They want that job. You know what I mean? We don't need no police running around there, getting no cats out the trees and stuff, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Come on. So again, if they're gonna come to the gang individual and ask you, we can't solve no crime without your help. Well, why do we need you? What you gonna do after we gonna tell you about the crime and whatever happened? What you gonna do? Come in and arrest somebody? That's all you good for? Put the handcuffs on them, take them down. We don't get no money. You don't get nothing for the job.
That's the game.
So
you might well police your own community.
What normally happens though is that doesn't always solve it. So muted. So the police, for the most part, they think they want to make an arrest, and they think that solves the problem. But sometimes we have deeper issues and deeper problems than just making an arrest is going to solve. So one of the things that I was taught by Deputy Chief Bob Green, he said, Skip, tell your community, stop calling the police. We have to start learning how to call each other. We have to start learning how to depend on each other when something is going on. Mental health issues or whatever, we should not call the police. Me and Taco actually stood outside about 12, 13 years ago when Elijah Love, a little 15-year-old boy, got shot, and the fire department was right there in front of ceasefire, 80th and Western. But Elijah Love is down there by Harvard. And we're like, why y'all won't go down the street? And they said they're waiting on the police to let them in. Well, Elijah Love died in his mama's arms. So those are things that we could do because the police want to start their investigation. They want to wait for their supervisor. They want to see that anybody see anything. They want to put up the yellow tape. There's so many things they want to do before they allow the fire department to come in and start administering medical assistance. So as a community member, I got to stop calling the police. When I call 911, I got to say, I got a young man, 15 years old, who was in his mother's arms. He has difficulty breathing. You know, his eyes in the back of his head, I don't know what's wrong with it. But I can't say it's a shooting because now the police come before the fire department. So I got to always call 911 and say it's a medical emergency in order to save the community members' lives. So there's certain things that we could do as alternative to 911. I wouldn't necessarily say that we don't need the police, but I would say that for the most part, there's so many other things that we could do as opposed to calling the police. And one thing we don't want to do in the community is help the police solve a crime or impede in their investigation. I don't want to help them and I don't want to hurt them. So for the community, we got to stay away from how we even interact with law enforcement in the community, because, you know, being labeled as a snitch pretty much just takes away all the community standing. I'd rather go take the gun out of somebody's hand and give it to his mama than to call the police and say the man got a gun, because he's liable to get shot and killed. So we got to think of alternatives to 911, and it's really on us too. It's really on us, OG. We got to do it.
A lot of the domestic violence, you know, it's a thing just going over there and getting the guy and getting him away from the house for a little while, you know, taking him away from the house. You call the police, you end up getting shot. You know what I mean? I think I've seen Reverend Shaw, your hand up.
You on mute,
Reverend Shaw.
Reverend Shaw, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah, you guys are hitting on some major things. One of the things, though, you said that I want to go back to is who made the rule that when law enforcement make a bus and sees thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that kind of go to law enforcement instead of into programs like what Taco and them do with the intervention, or what Skip and them do with second call. I mean, who allowed that? That's us. We should have been kicking their butt, screaming and hollering, saying, no. This money came out of our community. This was from drugs sold in our community. We want this to go into the following program. And I think that's how we got to start demanding. And we got to start going to the table collectively and not individually. Because if I'm going just to get my dollar and you go and get your dollar and he going to get his dollar, then we all end up with $1. But if we got $3, we can buy a sandwich. If we got, you know what I'm saying? So the thing is that we got to, it's totally different from the way we've been looking at it. And these monies that come out of our community need to come back into the community. It's not to go buy better AR-15s. It's not the better surveillance equipment. It needs to come down here, and maybe brothers that are out there, like they said earlier, risking their lives, like Taco, Rare Breed, all of these brothers doing this. Maybe a raise would be appropriate. You know what I'm saying? Maybe.
Oh yeah.
You know,
you got to push it. You got to push that program.
Now, what's
the program that Skip and Big John and them run? I've been there several times. Man, that thing should be having so much funding that people should be mad at them, because you taking people and giving them careers that are normally hopeless. You know, but you know, I mean, they're on TV the other day. Well, then somebody's supposed to say, "Let me give y'all a check." You know.
Can I say
this? They've been keeping that money quiet for years, decades. So you know what I mean. And I've asked some of the police about it, and they always tell me, "Oh, you ain't gonna never find out about all that money." You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to say this to you, LOG and everybody, is that given the exposure in law enforcement I've had for years, and much of the information that comes from above down to us, for the most part, revealed to us that the plan and the agenda is to decentralize the power of the police. What you're going to see ultimately is that the police will be, the layers of policing, federal, state, and local, will no longer be. That's a part of the plan.
Yep.
The other part of that, they will take that power and they will decentralize. They will put it in under the military. And then while it's under the military, the UN will play the ultimate power player in this thing, which then will redistribute persons from different parts of this country or even parts of the world who literally can be on your street and patrolling your street. Incentive, no stake in your community because they don't live there. Okay, they're from either another part of the country or another part of the world. I hate to bust your bubble there, but that's what they're wanting to do. And they're creating circumstances and chaos in different ways to bring about fear, to increase the fear of the public, and to create all kinds of suffering so that the public will accept anything that is the remedy. They are ready with the remedy. They just have to create and intensify all of this confusion to bring about the changes that they want to make. That's just a part of what they got in mind. So meanwhile, we can as a community collectively get together. That's probably the best way we can do it. Somebody already said that, y'all said it. It needs to be collective. Individualized is just not gonna do it. We gotta come together. Didn't the Asians do that? Don't they do it? Don't the Jews do it? They've done it for years. Look what they've been able to accomplish, but look how long we've been here.
And if I
Every police need to be black and the judges too.
Before you get in that conversation, Bobby, you got something for us?
You on mute.
Oh, Bobby? Oh, me.
Bobby.
Bobby Buck. Let me see where Bobby at. Here you go. Bobby had a treat for us.
Take it off mute. Okay, now take it off mute. Okay.
Yeah, I did want to say, outside of what the police officers, we do need to take a look to as something that we can make the change for. We really don't have issues when it comes to picking the police, but we have a choice to pick our judges and our district attorneys. And that's one thing when it comes to voting. A lot of us focus on mayors and we focus on presidents, but we really don't pay enough attention to our judges and the district attorney in our communities. And so we're putting together some project listing to make sure those judges, those prosecutors, district attorney who are running for office in our communities, they got to speak with us. They got to talk to us. We need to know, because when the police officer gets that man and locks him up in jail, he goes now to the district attorney and to those judges, and it's now in their two hands. So police officer could be the worst dude in the world, but if we got control of those judges and those district attorneys, we have an opportunity to make some strong change, and need to make sure we put those people in place that's going to be there to make those difference. And so that's something that we need to get into as they rocking the vote right now. We need to put that into place and make sure that we extremely make sure it's an urgency that we focus on our district attorney and our judges that'll be voting into our communities.
Right, because judges have time. And once the judge is appointed, he in there for a minute.
He in it for a minute. So we need to make sure once he get in there, we know who he is, what he about, and what he stand for before we let him in. We can't just let them keep slipping and walking up into our communities without even knowing who they are, not even knowing their names.
That's right. And then you get them racist ones up in there, and that's just double jeopardy. That's just a triple cross.
Come on.
You got the racist cop out there, then you got the racist judge, you got the racist lawyer. You ain't gonna never win. You got
the police officer.
How you gonna win?
And the police officer.
Go ahead,
how you gonna win? You know, the police officer need to be black, the judge need to be black, the whole judicial system need to be black and brown. Problem solved. And then change some of them laws and Jim Crow laws that's designed to lock us up.
Y'all getting ahead of our voting podcast. Go ahead, Bobby.
Right. The police are able to use the press to make the white public think that the police are able to use the press to make the white public think that 90% or 99% of the Negroes in the Negro community are criminals. And once the white public is convinced that most of the Negro community is a criminal element, then this automatically paves the way for the police to move into the Negro community, exercising tactics on the sidewalk, whether he is guilty or whether he is innocent, whether he is well dressed or whether he is poorly dressed, whether he is educated or whether he is dumb, whether he's a Christian or whether he's a Muslim. As long as he is black and a member of the Negro community, the white public thinks that the white policeman is justified in going in there and trampling on that man's civil rights and on that man's human rights. Once the police have convinced the white public that the so-called Negro community is a criminal element, they can go in and question
brutalize, murder unarmed, innocent Negroes, and the white public is gullible enough to back them up. This makes the Negro community a police state. This makes the Negro neighborhood a police state. It's the most heavily patrolled. It has more police in it than any other neighborhood, yet it has more crime in it than any other neighborhood. How can you have more cops and more crime? Why? It shows you that the cops must be in cahoots with the criminals.
Want to go too hard on y'all. We don't want to go too hard on y'all, but
That's right, though. Amen, brother.
Truth be
I
told.
just said, ain't too much change. You know, time has gone by. Just faces seem to be changing, and I really what you just said, and most of the commentators I've been following was saying how it might become a police state before the election. You know, might not even be no elections. You know, if they can create enough disturbances in all the urban communities, you know, they can have the right to declare martial law. So we need to really be paying attention to that. And I don't know how we're gonna get these youngsters on board, but we really need to be working on that. And I know we're working on some proposals, you know, to get funding to the communities and to the neighborhoods. So that's where we at. And I'm glad everybody came to the podcast. I think we got a lot out of it. And you see who I got behind us. I meant to do that in the beginning, but I got John Lewis behind me. And the reason I posted this, because this was a young man when he started, when he committed himself to this rare breed. He was in it a long time, you know. And I think, you know, so we got a lot of people that we can follow the example. I'm not too willing to get water holes and dogs sicked on me. So I have a lot of respect for somebody that can go out there and get all that done to them and still stand up, you know. So I know a lot of people use the word nonviolence as an excuse to be a coward. But this man right here, I mean, his whole life was committed to trying to make a change. So with that, Bobby, go ahead and take us out.
Right. I sure appreciate everybody coming on here. You know, before we go out, I want to get a little, maybe Reverend Freddie Shaw do a prayers out, then I hit it's a new day.
All right, Reverend. He always beautiful with it.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you on bended knees, knowing that thou art God. We thank you for this continuous Zoom webinar that we express our feelings and talk things out. We ask that you continue to bless the minds that have been on this show. Bless those who are holding the show. We know that all things are possible through you, so we are asking for the power to make your will be done that benefits our people and elevate us in consciousness and thought. We ask this in the precious name of Jesus Christ. All who agree say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Hey, Bobby Buck Promotions.
Yeah, y'all. It's a new day, y'all. Yeah. We got some business to take care of. Lots of business. The people are dying every day, shedding tears every way. Oh my God, I feel their pain. Oh my God, who's to blame? We need another day. See the light, a new way. Stop this fight. Peace in the hood is on its way. Peace in the hood is here to stay. Cause it's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is on its way. Cause it's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is here to stay. Cause it's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is on its way. It's a new day. It's a new day. Peace in the hood is here to stay.